Welcome to New Game Plus. We are a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game, and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name's Kenny.
And my name's Nolan.
And this is episode 33. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Did either of you play sports growing up? And if so, which ones, and why weren't you good at them?
I played baseball. And I wasn't good at it because I'm not athletic. I'm really skinny and lame.
Did you have fake chew?
Yeah, I had some gum. Big League Chew. Big League Chew.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you
it was
really
cool.
put it in your lip?
No, I chewed it because,
Yeah.
you know.
That's fun. So was this T-ball or is this actual baseball?
I actually don't remember T-ball. I may have skipped that. We did the pitching machine. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
You
I would
put the
assume
ball
it's a
and it
machine
shoots
that
it at
pitches,
you.
yeah.
That was actually fun. And then we got to the real thing where people threw balls at you, and that wasn't fun because they thought they were awesome and they threw them really hard. I don't like that. So we won though. I was on a winning team. It wasn't because of me, but my team was pretty good.
Did you ever make it all the way to home plate?
Of course.
Wow, impressive.
Thanks.
Kenny?
Never did baseball because yuck. I was a soccer and basketball kid.
You play
B-ball?
I was a
I
little
can't
baller.
see that, Kenny.
No, there was actually, and I'm with you. I've always been bad at sports, generally. Yeah. But basketball. There was a time in middle school where I was slightly older than all the other kids and was growing a little bit quicker than they were, and I was beat you to puberty, y'all, and so was tall and could just stand and stuff everybody and just be tall, but I was actually still really bad. But it was my contribution to my team, was being lanky.
I have never known that you played basketball.
Literally just through middle school. And then did soccer because my mom had a van, so we had to.
I too did soccer. I did soccer for 6 years and was pretty decent at the sport, but there was far too much running for me, so I retired around age 11 or 12. And so then I moved on, and in middle school I did football, and I did that into my first year of high school, but for whatever reason, and for good reason, in high school I never got playtime. So my friend and I, who he also did not get playtime, we would just run on the field and immediately run back off with the rest of the people that were coming off the field, and we acted like we were winded. We asked for water and we high-fived each other for the great plays that we just did. And
you totally would.
Soon after we quit. So I'm glad that I at least tried sports to realize that that's not what I want to do with my life, and I'm glad that you guys tried it but realized it wasn't your thing. I mean, basketball wasn't for Kenny, baseball wasn't for Nolan, football wasn't for me, but there is another sport called Speedball, and I wonder if it was a sport we liked or we loathed this week. Let's find out.
On this week's episode of... you just set that up so well. I figured I had to take it one step further. I mean,
Yeah, coming from Kenny.
You
No, don't renege.
you transitioned well, ish.
New Game Plus. Dun 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 dun.
Bump.
Overview.
So why don't we tell folks about Speedball if they're confused as to what it is, because it means so many things and is so many games that if you didn't know it was an old video game, it'd be bad.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a drug reference also.
It's a drug reference and also some kind of actual sport now. I don't know. It's a lot of things.
But what was it this week that we actually engaged with?
So Speedball was a late 80s Atari video game release by the Bitmap brothers that was a futuristic sports game, not baseball or soccer or any today sports, but a sport of tomorrow where everything is more high stakes and violent than any other sport. Because with future sports, it's always violent, if not like someone's gonna die on the line. That's just the way it goes. And released on Atari, and then was ported to like everything in the world. It's a team of it's a 2-player game, you against a computer or you against another person, and you've got a ball and you're trying to throw it into the opponent's goal. Almost like soccer meets, I don't know, some kind of handball.
Yeah, that sounds normal so far.
Yeah, pretty much, but like you're allowed to like attack violently the opposition, which sounds cooler than it is on a little like 16-bit graphic. You just sort of like knock the other guy down. You can collect like money and power-ups for your team to enable them to get a leg up on the competition. And basically you're running around this tiny little indoor arena throwing a ball into the opponent's goal. It's a pretty straightforward game, and definitely one of the older games we've played, so really truly has that retro feel.
The sounds of the game are super old. That was the hard part for me to listen to that for a long time.
See, I was actually kind of digging it.
Really?
It is repetitive, and it is super old, like it really is, but that kind of old, really, I don't know, like 16-bit, 8-bit sound is just so like nostalgic for me that I don't mind that it's actually annoying.
Yeah, like the theme song was okay on the start menu, but it's always so aggressive, just that 16-bit style. It's hard for me to listen to.
It is really aggressive. I agree with Kenny on this one. Like, I enjoyed the sounds. They were repetitive. Like with a lot of these games, they're limited, or for whatever reason, there's usually only like one track, and then you hear the same, sound for throwing and hitting over and over and over again, and so that gets difficult to listen to for extended periods of time. But there's still something nostalgic about it for me. Here's because I feel like our viewers are still confused as to what this game actually is in regards to sport-wise, because we're like, okay, so it's got the soccer element, but it's not. It's got this handball element, but it's not. I read this week that it's like that Speedball is like this. If you cross football, hockey, kickboxing, and street gangs, then you get Speedball.
Street gangs.
That's true.
Kind of.
I think that kind of clarifies things. What it made me feel like immediately was gladiators, like the American Gladiators.
Yeah,
like
they
actually had a sport like on that
was
show
similar to this,
where you had to grab a ball and like run past people trying to tackle you and like put the ball in a little like trash can looking thing.
Yeah,
that kind of had the same vibe. I hadn't thought about that, but totally.
That's the one that I'm thinking about, because even in this like hockey ring, which is kind of like set up, you've got a goal at the top and a goal at the bottom, and it's in this enclosed court. You've got these 4 circles that I'm still not entirely sure what they do.
They're kind of bumpers of some variety. Yeah.
For the ball, but not for you.
No, you can kind of like go through them.
Right.
So you need to almost cross it with what is the stupid video game?
Oh.
With the plunger and the balls and the paddles. What do you call that? Why am I dumb? What are those games called?
I don't know.
Plungers?
Yeah, you hit the little ball.
Super Mario Brothers?
What? All of our viewers are now making fun of me in their
We're
minds.
keeping this in here because I'm very curious as to what game you play with the plunger, balls, and a paddle.
No, it's like arcade style, like the classic. You hit the ball up, and then you try and keep it in play by hitting it with your paddles. You know what I'm talking about? What do you call those games?
Oh, plunger.
How tired am I?
I do know what you're talking about, but now for whatever reason, I can't think of it. Nolan, it's those arcade boxes that you pull back the plunger, and then you let it go, and it hits the ball. Yeah.
Pinball,
I said pinball
thank
like
you.
5 minutes ago.
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Of this conversation. I said pinball.
Okay, so add pinball in besides street gangs.
Plunger games.
And then you also have to add a little bit of Pac-Man, because there's that whole element where the ball can go through the side wall and then come out the other side wall.
But okay. But
I'll
Pac-Man?
let you. I was about to cut you off, but I'll let you, because
No, it's an element that isn't summed up by anything else you said.
There is a gate on the left and there's a gate on the right, because we don't have teleportation yet, Kenny. Sorry.
Exactly. It's a future game.
if you throw the ball in one side of the rim, it comes out the other side of the rim. So that's how maybe it's like Pac-Man.
Exactly. That's
But
the only
kinda
part
not.
that's like Pac-Man.
Gameplay.
So at the beginning of each match, you've got 3 different teams to select from. And each of those 3 teams have different stats. They're fairly similar, but they differ slightly in maybe stamina or speed or different things like that.
I think skill and power were the other ones besides stamina.
Skill and power. And then in the core game of Speedball, you've kind of got 2 different games. You've got tournament or you got knockout. And knockout, from what I gather, is just a straight up game. It's a single game, and tournament is obviously a tournament style elimination. And so I think if you lose and you're unable to use your coins to remain in, then you're out of the tournament.
Right.
But you can continue in the tournament and conquer, all the different teams.
Yeah. Knockout is like, I think it's two out of 3. Best 2 out of 3, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
You play like
that's
3
right.
rounds, and then if you have coins left, by the way, the coins he's talking about are like you get a coin for a goal that you score. So you can spend those coins before a match starts for like, what are some of them? Extra time on the clock, or one of them's even like an extra point. That one's expensive.
And then I think that if you lose your game, like say you lost by 1 point, and then it comes up to the continue screen, and I think you can even use your coins to like bribe the judges or bribe the time clock, and that you can come back in and
No
try
way.
to
And
win
play
again.
for longer,
Well,
yeah.
I didn't know that's what happened, because that kind of happened to me. I thought that it lets you finish out your coins, and then once you're out of coins, you lose if you don't score again or something. I didn't know I was bribing. But yeah, you spend those coins and you get to, like, you can even increase your stamina, like some of the stats on your team. And speaking of stats, maybe we should talk about the different teams.
Their names were real generic. You literally just had the one team that had like slightly higher power than the others, one that had slightly higher stamina than the others, and one that had slightly more skills.
I think one was called Draco, so that's just the one that I chose because
Me
of the
too.
name.
Well, yeah, I chose Draco because out of the 3 you can pick, like, they had lower stamina than the kind of balanced team, but they had like 30 more skill, and I thought that was a good trade-off, so I went Draco. But there's really nothing unique about the teams other than the different stats and the color of them.
You just picked Draco because we all know what house you guys would be in.
I hope so. I don't know. I played a few different teams, and I didn't feel any difference.
Yeah,
it might be
It's more in the player's hands.
inexperience with the game, or it might be the reality that it's more based on your ability and talent and not the teams. Like in other like sports games with football teams and stuff, you can feel some of the difference, and you can feel some of that statistical variances. But in this game, I don't feel it as much.
I would say if you played a lot of it and got like really good at the game, I'd assume that you could notice the difference. But just picking it up and playing it and trying to learn and then not be bad, and then failing at that and being really bad, I also couldn't notice much difference between the different teams.
So playing the game itself, you only have 2 buttons to your disposal outside of the D-pad. You've got one that lobs the ball or shoots the ball, depending. You can tap it and it shoots the ball, or passes, and you can hold that button A and it will lob the ball. And the other dashes your character or tackles. And so please understand here that I didn't say that you could use your left or right bumpers to select which players you control, or that you've got any kind of options to do any of those other things. You only have those 2 buttons, and that's all you can do. Hence, my main problem with the game, that you have very poor control over who you are in control of.
Right.
And you never get to select. It's just based on where the ball is at that time. And
Absolutely.
then I guess the computer
decides.
picks who you're going to control.
But poorly.
Very poorly. And you never just control the goalie. Whatever defender you're controlling at the time, then your goalie is also attached to that defender. And so you just have to, it gets very difficult to know who you are, and when you do know who you are, that you desperately wish that you were someone else and you can't do anything about it.
Pressing select would have been a nice option to choose a different teammate, or to like cycle through
Absolutely.
Or at least like jump to your goalie if you hit select or something. But yeah, it will just decide for you. And I had times where I would be like rushing down the field to go defend, and then it switches to a different character, and I'm like in the corner, just dashing into the corner, not
Right.
going in the right direction, and then they score on me so hard. That happened so much that I had to just stop pressing buttons until it would tell me which character I am, and then I can start going. It was very frustrating. Also, the AI goalie is way too strong. Like, he blocked so much of my stuff.
I agree, but if you can figure out you can figure out a good way to break him, is what I ended up doing over and over again, is that I would pass it to my right hand side, and you could repeat this on the left, I'm sure, and then I would run up to where you're fairly close to the goalie, and then you can turn to the left just a little bit, and you'll always throw it past his side, and so, if you're at the right distance away. So you can learn tricks like that, and then the AI doesn't learn or know how to respond to that, because one, it's AI, but then two, it's also a 1988 video game.
I would say it's a really, really old AI. The fact that it like swapped you to a character even sort of close to what was going on was sort of impressive.
Yeah, we should be applauding that.
Absolutely.
I was like bouncing it off the wall. That was pretty good strategy because he'll block it straight on every time.
Every
so
time.
I just started ricocheting it off the side of the wall, and that scored me a few points. Did you guys play Knockout your first time, or did you go for like the tournament?
I did Knockout straight away. I just because I thought tournament is too much of a commitment. I just wanted to get in and play a game.
The game
the very first match I did well. I did well. Like, it was 2-0, so I actually won. But then I am not sure if I won another match after that.
Really?
Yeah. See, that's like my experience. I was worse at this game than I think I am at real sports, which is saying something.
Well, you're a god at basketball.
Yeah.
I was.
You're on the back of basketball cards that I got in my collection. So Nolan, you did better. I mean, it's no surprise that you're better at both of us at video games.
No. I played Knockout the first time, and I recorded the scores here, so I have some data for you guys.
Yeah.
First game, 0-7. I lost bad. It was 0-7 Mira.
My goodness.
Team Mira. I was Team Draco. And they whooped me, and it was very unpleasant. I did not have fun with this game. Second game, 3-4, I won, or 4-3, I won.
Wait. Okay, 4-3.
Yeah, I said that backwards. And so I was like, all right, this is all right. And then 2-4, last game, they won, and then I got to use my coins. I guess it's like a last shot before you're done, and so I spent the coins on extra time. Maybe that's why it let me play, is because I spent it on extra time. And so I played for like a minute more. And I scored once, but I wasn't able to pull it out. So I went out like a buster. But I actually really liked this game. Even though it was hard and I lost, I liked this game a lot. I had fun with it.
So did you end up playing a tournament? Or was that your tournament?
No, I just did knockouts this week. I didn't go for a tournament. That intimidated me. And based on my knockout stats, I didn't think I'd have any good results.
You didn't think you were ready for a long-term commitment?
I didn't even enter. I just did knockouts, which I only played Team Draco. And like you guys said, I doubt there's any real difference you can feel in the teams. I just had to get better at learning like what to do. And those power-ups, actually, there's power-ups that you can pick up. We mentioned that. I never got that many. I don't know if the team was destroying me and getting them first or what, or if I was just so into the game that I didn't notice them. I didn't pick them up that much.
And I didn't notice them significantly, but there were a few that stood out to me. There is one that it looks like it instantly throws these phantom balls, like 4 different phantom balls in various directions, which I guess is supposed to confuse the other team. And so I noticed that one. And then I noticed one with the skull and crossbones. It looked like something very deadly that I tried to avoid just because of the look of it, but every time I collected it, I wasn't sure what it did. So although there were power-ups in the game, it wasn't like the primary feature of this first Speedball game.
Right, like there wasn't a huge emphasis on them, and one of them was
you see them and they make a difference clearly, or they wouldn't be there, but like they weren't huge.
Yeah, one of them was like inverts the enemy team's movement. So if you press down, you would go up. That's stupid, and that's not fair. I don't like that one at all.
No, I'm all about that. There's another game, another competitive game that does that.
Yeah, I used to play. I don't remember what either, but I know at least one game that would do that. And I would get in the habit of just taking, I think it was an NES game, of just taking my controller when that happened and just turning it around, like upside down.
Wow.
And then you play the D-pad with your right hand, and it feels right, and you just have to swap your buttons, your A and B.
We're not basketball gods like you, Kenny.
Sorry, Ken.
That way.
That's
Sorry,
next
Ken.
level. That's what you do.
Ken, the basketball god.
Yes, Ken.
So I did a single knockout and it went poorly, and so I thought that I was good to go for tournament. Jumped into a tournament and lost my first game, but not only lost, like I think it was 0-8, something significant, and it was humiliating. And I apologized to the other team and knew that I wasn't ready for a tournament, so I went back to knockouts for the rest of my time.
Yeah, that's the big leagues.
Kenny, did you try? Ken, did you try a tournament this week?
You got to go all the way if you're shortening.
Ken, the BBG.
There you go.
Did you play a tournament?
No, I
this week?
mostly just did knockout games. It seemed like it was a pretty much you pick it up and play it kind of game, and I didn't feel like that I knew of at least that there were any features I was missing, so I didn't feel the need.
All right, what about the age of this game? This game came out in 1988, so it's an aged game, but did the content, the gameplay, the music, the story, which we forgot to mention. Oh, no, we didn't. How did this game age?
Aged.
It's aged a lot. I mean, I think anyone who would pick up the game would immediately feel that. It's one of those types of games. It's not like one where you can kind of justify its, graphics lasting a long time or something like that. You know what you're getting into, but you definitely feel it in the gameplay too. It's not one of those games that I feel has aged poorly because it was never good or something like that. I think that it has been the years that have gone on and games have gotten better, but for being an early game that is a competitive style sports game, basically, I mean, I was pretty impressed with how I was still able to enjoy it for that, because I don't enjoy that genre. I don't think that's fun, and I enjoyed this one more than I would enjoy like Madden today. Like a football game today.
I think that's a huge factor when it comes to trying to determine the age of a game. It's not just how the mechanics have or have not evolved, or lasted, the timeline. It's not just how the music has done over time. It's also your enjoyment level of the game.
Sure.
And so I think that, like, if a game has done well, like if the graphics are remarkable, I'm thinking of that one game that we played. It's been a couple months now, but it has this really kind of anime-esque look.
Guardian
and
Heroes.
You're thrown into battle right away. Is that the same one I'm thinking about? There's that talking sword.
Uh-huh.
Guardian Heroes, like, for all intents and purposes, and a lot of the agedness of it, for me, I thought that the technical side of things aged wonderfully. Like the graphics still looked good, the music was captivating, and all of that was right. But my enjoyment level of it, in regards to its age, was down. And so that's just kind of on the flip side. Like and what you're saying, it felt like some of the stuff in this game has aged poorly, but it still managed to keep your attention and keep your entertainment level up, and I think there's some merit to that.
I find myself sometimes with these games talking about the age just from like an objective standpoint, where I think that blah 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 based on like our games today or how games have changed, but I forget sometimes that the video games are made to have fun with. And I agree that is a huge factor. That should be one of my most important factors I need to start factoring into my games when I'm determining age. But Kenny, what'd you think?
Yeah, I thought definitely some of the things you guys mentioned was where I was. It's one of those that it clearly has sort of a like classic retro game vibe, which I love. I'm okay with an old game feeling like an old game.
Yeah,
you know,
fair,
if it does
absolutely.
something unique and it's fun. And so I'm with you. This tends to not be a genre that by any means would be my first choice, but I thought they did this game well. Where I struggled was the same stuff that Dustin, you talked about struggling with, and that is more the mechanics kind of stuff, and I feel like that hasn't aged as well. And that's probably more just technology driven, but like the ability of the computer to select the correct person for you to be playing as, and those kind of things really kind of bothered me a little bit. But like tone of the game, simplicity of the sport, the idea of the indoor arena and bouncing things off walls and off of bumpers and knocking into the other team and throwing things through walls and powering up your team, and like the core concept of this game is great. And I feel like it has sort of that classic retro sort of replayability, but with a few snags that make me say it has aged on some fronts, where and I say it almost all the time, and I had the sense just in reading things that it's true in this case as well, that I feel like playing a sequel or playing something further in that was like it but refined would have probably been even better.
Yeah, Speedball 2 was the second release, and from what I gather, it had great popularity, and it fixed a lot of the age problems that we're mentioning, the mechanical problems and issues that we're mentioning from the original Speedball.
Added a bunch of like role-playing elements as well, and like team management elements, and like next level game interaction kind of stuff.
Yeah, like you could get stat-specific helmets and armor. There are more power-ups that are more purposeful, more teams, and that it's just an all-around better game. And
that sounds cool.
So, if the age of this game bothers you, have no fear. Speedball 2.
Yeah, and they even did an HD remake of it. So if you want that sort of classic look, but you don't want it fully pixely, you know what I mean? You want it to just look and feel old, but interact more correctly. I think that's the way I would recommend people play it. Like if you like this genre and you like old games, I'd say jump in for sure, but do it on the second one.
The final shell shock.
At the conclusion of each of our episodes, we reflect back on the game that we played for the last 7 days, and each of us as individuals give our either approval or disapproval when it comes to our new Game Plus status, which means would we encourage you, our viewers, to play this game, to go find a copy and enjoy it for a few days for what it is, or would we say steer away from it? There's something else out there for you to enjoy, and this would not be something that we would suggest you going and finding and playing again for whatever reason. And that time is here, that time is now. Dustin, do you give this game your new Game Plus status?
You should always ask yourself questions. I like it.
No, I don't. I think, Dustin, that there are probably better violent futuristic sports games out there, including Speedball 2, which I haven't played, but I don't know what these other violent futuristic sports games are because that's not necessarily my genre that I play regularly, but there are definitely better ones out there, and I think this one is one that for the majority of people they would not enjoy.
I mean, you could say Vigilante 8.
Don't play that one either.
Don't
play that one either. Nolan, do you give this game your new Game Plus status?
Yes, I do. Based on my enjoyment with the game this week, I did feel the age and the aspects of it, the graphics, the sound, I had some issues with, and of course the mechanics, but after being frustrated for losing 0-7, it motivated me to play some more, and playing it like 3 or 4 more times, I ended up having a lot of fun with this game. I think it's really unique because it is like a competitive, it's an old school game, but it's competitive and it's multiplayer, and I didn't get to play with someone, but just even playing against the AI, you feel that nature of it. And I think it is worth playing just because it's so retro. Like Kenny said, you really feel that it's super retro. And I actually really, really like the game.
Here's the cool thing. I have no idea where this is going to end up. If you're relatively new to the podcast, we only will give our New Game Plus seal of approval if 2 or more of us give this game our New Game Plus status. Currently, I have said no, although I enjoyed some aspects of the game. And I didn't even mention, at first, my first game, I was like, I'm giving this is a surprise. I'm enjoying this. This is unique. This is fun. I'm giving this game my New Game Plus status. But then the more I played, the more the mechanic and age kind of just brought that level of excitement down to where I gave it a no. Nolan gave it a yes. And so now it is in your lap, Ken, the BBG. What would you say? Do you give this
original
game
Dunkster
your New Game Plus status?
I've got all the power today. I like it. I feel like I'm kind of in the opposite camp from you with my experience of this game, Dustin. I picked it up and tried to play a game early in the week, and it just went terribly, and I didn't know how things were moving around, and I couldn't figure out for sure what controls were, and it sort of seemed like I knew which character I was, but then I couldn't tell for sure, and it was just really frustrating. And there were balls flying everywhere, and I didn't know if they were big or little or why. And I started this game like, I'm gonna hate this so much. Why do I play this genre? And obviously you can't just stop there. You got to give a game a fair shake. And so I found that the more I played, the more I did enjoy it. I'd say this was a pretty cool game that was probably really popular back in the day, but I can't give it my New Game Plus.
You
You
trickster.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. We were making noises. Everybody just
Foul.
made
That's
noise.
a foul.
No, the between no ability to select your specific characters, and between just general frustration with sort of the mechanics, and maybe it's literally just because I was bad at the game, and so how much fun you have with a game is sometimes determined by that. Unfortunately, it's a reality of games.
Sure.
And again, just in reading anecdotally, I felt like everything I saw online made me think I wish I was just playing the second one. I feel like it's so much better probably on so many fronts. And so all those things across the board, I think it's a cool game to know about. You ought to maybe look it up, check it out, be familiar with it. Classic on those fronts, but not one that I would say is worth everybody's time to play.
Well, that does make 2 games in a row that does not get our New Game Plus seal of approval. Last week we played Bible Adventures, and if you haven't played the game,
Don't.
We had a few viewer interactions this week. Keldor sent us a message. He said, I adored this game so much I couldn't believe the look of the sequel and thought they'd ruin it. How wrong I was. Speedball 2 is perhaps my favorite computer game ever. By the way, I was a master of both. No one could beat me. I went through about 5 joysticks on this game.
That's awesome. It feels like the kind of game that you jump in and get good at, and you would just have a blast with. You know what I mean?
Especially with friends. Once again, I think this might be a game that we're, in some part, missing some of the fun in, because I could see us sitting side by side on a couch, holding hands, and split screening this game, playing Speedball, and having fun and getting angry at each other.
Absolutely. It's that Mario Kart effect. Yeah, if you're allowed to play something split screen with real people, it's always going to be better.
Eric sent us a message on Facebook. Once again, he said, I played Speedball on 2 different systems. The first was on the Master System, and the second one was for the NES. Actually, it goes by the name Clash Ball. I enjoy sports games, and I find non-traditional games to be a nice change of pace. I felt like this game had potential to be pretty good. It was fun for a while, but I found the controls for both ports to be very poor, especially trying to control the goalie. Also, a little music would have been nice to drown out the semi-annoying sound effects. Overall, it was fun to try a game that was outside of the norm.
I'd agree with that general assessment. Always always cool to just see something different or unique.
And it's good to point out that there was a port to the Nintendo Entertainment System, and they just changed the name. But for the most part, gameplay and graphics and sound is still the same. It's just by a different title called Clash Ball.
Yeah, that's the one I played this week, too.
And then Rev Baraldo tweeted us on Twitter, and he said, "My review for Speedball for the Atari ST is as follows. Figuring out how the emulator works was by far the most fun part of the experience."
Oh.
So not a fan? Or he just really, really, really likes emulators.
That's what it is. Rev Baraldo loved the game, but there was nothing like trying to figure out how that emulator works.
Yeah, it's so much better.
Yeah, that was his complete review that he sent to us. I guess he's got to keep it, under 140 characters. So there
Absolutely.
you go.
That's really funny. Yeah, I can see a lot of people despising the game just based off of the criticisms that we've had.
Yeah, thank you, lords and ladies, for sending us your feedback this week. We love to include your commentary next week on whatever game we're about to find out that we're going to be playing together. And so just send that in. You can email us at ngppodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook or Twitter, NGP Podcast. You can go straight to our SoundCloud or our website. There are so many different ways to find us. Just look for us on ngppodcast.com. If you got our numbers, text us. Do whatever it takes and get us your feedback.
You can also use Ask Jeeves to look us up if you're wanting a search engine from a decade ago.
Time to randomly select our new old game from the Retro Master list, and that game that we're going to be playing for the next 7 days is StarCraft.
Sweet.
Wow.
Holy cow.
So wow.
This to me is almost like us playing like Ocarina of Time to Nolan or something.
Yeah, Ken, you love this game.
I've probably spent more hours playing this video game than any other ever. And
Wow.
I did the WoW thing for a while.
Wow. Let me ask.
Wow, boy.
Wow, is this a game that we will be able to play with viewers?
Hopefully. I don't know the state of it currently in terms of like how it's aged and how playable it is and how locked down it is, all of those things. But it definitely is multiplayer, and I would assume there are people still trying to play, the original StarCraft out there. So there ought to be a way to do it. I don't know if it'll be easy though.
All right, Prince and Princesses, this is what we're going to do. We have got a Steam group set up under our code name, NGP Podcast, and it is open to all. We've already got, we just did it this week, and we've got, 5 people a part of that, and so that's exciting. There's a conversation board on there, so a chat board, so we can talk to you. You can talk back to us directly. We can play some games together, and hopefully this week, maybe, if this is possible, we can play StarCraft together via Steam. If not Steam, maybe we can find out some other way, but we would love to play these games with you.
But head to the Steam group, join up if you want to play sometime, and we'll maybe see if that's an option, because that'd be a blast.
Also, feel free to go back this week and listen to any of our old episodes minus Bible Adventures per Kenny. And and so you can do this by subscribing to us via iTunes or SoundCloud or Stitcher. And then after you listen, if you're enjoying what you're hearing, would you just take a moment and rate and review us? If you dislike what you're hearing, just walk away. But once again, if you like what you're hearing and you like what we're doing here, then one of the best ways you could support us is by rating and reviewing us, sharing this podcast with your friends. We're actually gearing up right now. We've got a Speedball tournament later this afternoon, so wish us luck. Until then, I'm still Dustin.
I'm still confused if I've been signed up for a Speedball tournament.
And I'm Ken, the original Dunk Master.
Flex, and this has been New Game Plus.
Swow.